Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. My name is Brooke Harris, and I am your host. I am an oracle. I am a psychic. I am a CEO. I am a mom, a wife, many things. Hopefully decent at all of them. And just here to show up, create expansive moments, share my experiences, and share the experience of others in the hopes or the quest to guide you and give you a friendly hand to hold along your own journey, whatever part of the process that you might be in. If you've been listening for a bit, I want to say thank you. It's Thanksgiving week. Certainly a time to reflect on the things we're grateful for, and our listeners, the opportunity to get on the mic and share my voice, the opportunity to interview incredible people and learn so much for myself are things that I am very, very grateful for. And if you're new, I'm grateful for you too. Thanks for finding us. Welcome to the club. We are so happy to have you. We talk about a wide range of things. And before I get to today's guest, which, the conversation I have with our guest today is very grounded, very earthly. We're talking wellness, longevity, all kinds of tips and information in that world. I tend to lean more spiritual. And so I have a gift, or I have a message for you guys from the universe. It has been coming through for the last day or so. And, if you've been listening, sometimes when I get these messages that I'm supposed to share, they just don't go away until I share them. So here I am sharing it with you. It is a beautiful message. It is one that I've shared many times in different ways, and I think even comes up a bit in this episode. But it felt very important to isolate the message for you guys to hear. I think because so many of you are waking up right now. You are feeling the call to change, to transform, to something different, to start to explore. I think that's why this message feels so important. So let me share what it is. And I think it's just a message to kind of sit with and reflect on, especially this week, where maybe you'll have a little extra time on your hands to think and reflect and plan where you're going. So here it is, your message from the universe for Thanksgiving week. It is the small steps and tiny actions that create the profound shifts and change in life. Let me say that one more time. It is the small steps and tiny actions that create the profound shifts and change in life. I cannot tell you guys how true that has been for me. There is not one moment or one big thing that I did that helped me, along my path, along my journey, has helped push me into this version of myself that is much more grounded, peaceful, much more free, much more in tune with myself and my intuition and my body. It is a million tiny little steps. And I want it to be like 3 steps because I just want to tell you guys exactly what to do so that you can get here too. And certainly I'm working on that, but it really is just this a million tiny little steps. And it's the willingness to show up, the willingness to take those steps, the willingness to continue to take those steps, right? It's kind of like this habit stacking process. And then all of a sudden one day you look around and you're like, oh shit, I have arrived. Or maybe not arrived, but like, whoa, I am a massively different person than I was 6 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever it is. Right now, for me, it feels like every week there's this profound shift in who I am, how I show up, my understanding of the world, the access that I have to information and the truth. And it's pretty cool, and it's so, so worth it. And so, yes, it is those tiny moments. It is the tiny habits, the willingness, the moments that you choose a higher frequency versus a lower one, the moment where you decide to listen to your intuition and then do it again, and then do it again, and keep doing that until you have a relationship with your intuition. It is the moments where you choose to, make a decision that is of a higher frequency versus a lower one. You choose not to post that argument on social media. You choose to think about your words differently when you're in a discussion with your family. You choose to unify versus be right or prove a point. It is in every situation these tiny decisions and tiny moves that you make toward a higher timeline, a higher frequency, a better version of yourself that add up to then you just are your everything that you are wishing that you could be and had no idea how you'd get there. So I hope that makes sense. I hope my version of it makes sense. The universe's message certainly does. And I hope that you have a little extra time this week to think about that. Think about maybe what things you want to put in place to kind of get where you're going, and know that it is going to take time. And it's just about showing up and continuing to show up, and the results are so worth it. So I hope that's helpful. Let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. She is incredible. She is my friend, Jenny Jiles. I've known her for a good 10 or 15 years, both of us in the wellness and nutrition space. Jenny is a certified holistic nutritionist, a personal trainer, and a behavioral change specialist helping midlife women simplify their health. Jenny specializes in lazy healthy, which I love, and I think it will totally resonate with you guys, in lazy healthy hacks that show how small shifts can create lasting change. Her mission is to empower clients to tune out the noisy wellness culture and connect with their own internal compass. So we talk about this a lot in the episode. Jenny is very straightforward. She's very realistic. She treats things in a very approachable way. We talk wellness, nutrition, longevity, like all the different wellness trends. Jenny kind of gives her views from her professional standpoint, her views on them, what you need to know, what you can kind of leave behind. We get into some spicier topics like botox and ozempic and the current war on Kellogg's. And it's just a lot of fun. Jenny has a lot of energy in a really beautiful way. And I think you guys will really enjoy our dynamic. When I was listening back and editing, I was like, man, I don't think I've laughed that much in an episode in a while. So hopefully that's not annoying to you guys. But we had a good time and it was a lot of fun. And it's just a very down to earth conversation with a lot of information that I think will be really easily digested for you guys and easy to start to apply to your day-to-day. So Jenny can be found on Instagram at Jenny Jiles. I'll put everything in the show notes, but I highly recommend, if you do nothing else, start following her on Instagram because her content is, again, super accessible, really helpful. Like it all has a point and is like useful. Plus she's just really fun. She's going to feel like, if she doesn't feel like your BFF after this episode, she will after you watch a few reels or a few of her pieces of her Instagram content. Yeah. had a lot of fun with this one. I hope it's useful. If nothing else, it will give you some fuel for some of those hot topics that might be coming up at your Thanksgiving dinner table. And again, if nothing else, it will also be a good laugh because Jenny has incredible energy and we have a great time. So enjoy this one, my friends. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. I am so grateful for you. And again, grateful for the opportunity to be here. All right, enjoy. All right, Jenny, my friend, I am so happy to see you and so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. This is awesome. I feel like this is something we've been talking about for like so long, and now we're making it happen. Yes. And one of the reasons I love spending time with you, and I'm so excited about this conversation, is because you just show up so authentically in everything that you do. And any of your followers who are listening know that, and I think that's why they love you. But before we get into all the stuff, we're going to have a really fun, expansive, twisting and winding conversation about the health and wellness world today. Before we get into all of that, how do you do it? How do you be so authentic all of the time? Oh my God, we're just right into it, right?
Tell us all your deepest, darkest secrets and fears. And
yeah, I was about to say, first of all, I mean, I appreciate that, right? I'm kind of living my life, and what's interesting is this world of social media, right, that we didn't necessarily grow up with, and now it's like you're living your life out loud, right, with viewers in a way, which is really strange. But I mean, I have a lot of fun with it, right? Like I like kind of the chaos of life, the things that aren't right? Like the things that aren't perfect, you know? And somebody who grew up as a full perfectionist with, plenty of like trauma and stuff around that, like the more that I just lean into the mess and the mess of me, like the more grace I have for myself, the more just peace I have internally, right?
Yeah.
And I just can show up with that, right? It's just like, it is what it is. And try to do the best, right? I can.
And it's really contagious and it's really empowering too. I think certainly being around you in person is the same as like being your friend on social media or being one of your viewers on social media, which I love that about you. It's really fun, but it's also really empowering for people watching. One thing I wanted to share with you is I don't think I've ever told you this. The fact that you don't use filters on Instagram is like it makes me so happy and so relieved, and it like gives me permission. I don't use filters also, but there's still a lot of times where I'm about to post something where I'm like, maybe this is the one where I should use a filter, Yeah. And then I think about you and I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm not going to use a filter. Like that is not authentic to me. That is not the norm we should be creating for people. That's not something I want to encourage now that I have a daughter. Like I wouldn't want to encourage her to do or think, just understanding there's a little bit more to the root of like, I want to put a filter on. But you showing up the way that, I guess all that to say, you showing up the way that you show up, like has certainly given me permission to be more authentic. And I think it gives a lot of people that permission. So thank you.
I love that too. Well, also I think about it like, it's how I show up in the world. Like you said, like I show up without makeup and my hair destroyed. And like, if you run into me at, my daughter's basketball game or at the grocery store, I run into people at the grocery store all the time. Right. It would be a real disconnect. Like, hey, right. All dolled up. And then you saw me in the real world and you're like, what the fuck? Why does she look
fair? Like, yeah. Yeah. Totally fair.
It is what it is. There are, and I think maybe even you and I've talked about this before too. Like there are plenty of elements of, my face or things that I want to change or whatever, but there's plenty of things that I'm like, no, I love that. This is me. Right. It is. And it's interesting having a daughter too, because she, is learning about beauty and Sephora 12-year-old culture. Right. And people are like, oh my gosh, you look so much like your mom, she's like fixates on like maybe the negative pieces. You know, it's like, well, why do I have a big forehead like you? Or why do I have a, right? Like
excuse me.
And I'm like, you know, babe, you just kind of go with it, you know?
Yeah.
But this is what makes you you and you unique. And anyways, that's been a real interesting just experience with her getting to know her own things that maybe she doesn't like. And also like, you kind of got to love what you got.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm like dreading that age. We're very much in the 3-year-old bubble right now where like, can't we just stay here where everything's good? I have control over what you eat, like all the things, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Like lady said something the other day and she was like, did I always like goldfish? And I was like, no, I used to make them homemade, you know? And I was like, and then you moved to Annie's brand and now it's like, that's what you want. So it is.
Yeah. We're all just doing our best here.
Yeah.
Yes, but let's talk about kind of the content and the work that you do leading women. How would you describe it or how are you sharing it these days?
I guess my main kind of focus is I want to empower women. This is kind of like 35 plus women and to really kind of drown out a lot of this wellness noise and really start listening to their bodies and their own internal compass. And along with what we're saying with social media, like there's so much and it's constant and it's all the time of, you know, what we should be doing and that kind of thing. And there are things that we quote should be doing, right, that improve our life and our health. But in the age of social media and algorithm, like I know that if I post, you know, something with me just talking about a few things to do, it doesn't do as well than if I say, here are 5 things you shouldn't be doing. It doesn't. Right. And it is just, that is the nature of the beast. I don't love it. Right. And I like to really try to kind of soften that outward stuff that we're getting all the time and really kind of hone in on just, and your own internal compass, right? Because why
do you think we're at a place, you said women 35 and older, like 35 years on the planet, you've learned some stuff, you've been through some stuff, you're probably pretty far into your career, you might even have kids. Why are we so disconnected like from that internal compass, especially when it comes to food, health, and wellness?
I mean, it's so much old programming. Right? I do belief patterns and beliefs, little kind of homework with clients and some of my members. And, you know, it is going back and really thinking like the first time you had these kind of beliefs or things taught to you explicitly or implicitly about food, about bodies, about, you know, all of us have something or multiple things that are programmed pretty early. Right. And it's like getting in touch with that and realizing that. And I think it takes some time, like you said, like takes life and life experience to realize, oh, I've now grown and those are beliefs of my parents or what was in the past. That's not a belief that I have now. And I think we all kind of go through some sort of evolution. And I know there's some like female timeline around this like 38 mark or whatever, spiritual thing where women really come into kind of, they're really shedding the past and shedding old stuff. And so it seems to line up with that pretty clearly.
Well, I think we're kind of a unique generation, you know, being someone who's in that 35 plus range, where we're coming at like there was a lot of bad information and a lot of bad habits that came out about food and around eating. Like I remember, you know, one of my grandmothers had like a whole cupboard of like Snackwells and Richard Simmons foods, like, you know, like fat-free, low-fat, sugar-free, like we were victims of all of that because we were kids and didn't know the difference. I was just having a conversation actually at the dentist yesterday, getting my teeth cleaned about the hygienist was telling me about, like, for some reason was telling me about the drinks that she used to drink as a kid, like the Tang, and we used to have those Kool-Aid. Do you remember freaking Kool-Aid? Like, I don't even know. Does it still exist? And it's like sugar packets that you add to water. And we would just house the packet by itself. We wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't even make the drink. You just like eating straight up sugar all the time and white bread. And so I think we are, as far as the food goes, like there's so many layers to it, right? And I think we'll hit on some of those today. But like we are uniquely victims, I think, of this very weird time in history where like the food system was more jacked up than maybe it's ever been, and the messaging in the food system.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like we are like the snack wells. That's our like mascot of our generation. We see just like sleeves of them, you know? Yeah, that was bad, you know? I remember, yes, we used to just eat bagels, just nonstop over and over again. And I'm surprised we had any energy, which, yes, the 16-year-old body is very different than being, 35 plus and trying to figure out how to fuel and all of that. But yeah.
Yeah. And tell me where you lead the conversation now with people. How do you talk about food and the path to, like, I guess, food freedom and wellness freedom?
I mean, like I said, we first kind of start with like, what are some of kind of old patterns, beliefs that are kind of creating barriers for them. What happens often, right, as somebody calls or somebody DMs or in some way, there is a belief that if you just tell me what to eat, then I'll be able to do it, right? Like I'll just be able to do that, right? And that's a very shallow perspective of it, right? It isn't that. It isn't that you just don't know what to eat. There's plenty of options of things to eat, but it is understanding what's creating the not wanting to choose certain foods or wanting to indulge in certain foods at certain times for emotional, right, support, or not eating because of diet culture, something, or you've not been eating for so long, right? I see that so much, right? There's just this old, like, eating less piece, right? Which as you get older backfires in so many ways.
Yes.
You get away with that when you're younger, but it really backfires and you start not having energy, your muscle mass decreases, your bone density, like it affects so many things where in your 20s, it more naturally, your body could handle certain things that it can't handle now. So we kind of do a deep dive into those kinds of things and see kind of what the regular pattern is, like day in the life type of stuff first, before we're trying to kind of build new habits. And they kind of build on each other too, right?
Yeah.
We start in one area and then we're building over time. It takes about 3 months to kind of just understand what you're wanting to do or trying to do. And then you kind of get into a flow or a groove. And that's where like the behavior change starts, like month 4 or 5, right?
Well, and that is a pretty amazing timeline, because I think something people don't realize, like I have multiple coaches for different things, lucky for me, I've been on my health and wellness journey for a long enough time that I've like really got that dialed in. And I really think that you have to dial that in before you can go on to anything else. Like the health and wellness is the foundation. Like you can't get into manifesting, you can't get into spirituality, like you can't figure out, higher dimensions or solve the world's problems unless you have that baseline of health and wellness, like dialed and figured out, is how I feel. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on that.
Health is kind of the foundation of all the things, right? You can't reach other goals, manifest, do all these other things without having this foundation. I would even really specifically start a lot of my clients with sleep. Like I feel like she's the queen of all the things. And unless you have small children or there's reasons you can't, right?
Yeah.
It is the huge foundational piece. It is affecting so many pieces, and your hunger hormones, your hormones in general. I mean, obviously your energy levels, but there's lots of pieces that you have to be grounded with your sleep, and you just feel so much better. You have, it makes everything else easier when you're sleeping and when you can't sleep.
Yeah, I think I love sleep being the place to start, because like, as someone who's very serious about their sleep, you can be on a roll. Everything's good. You're doing your morning routine. You're feeling great. One night of bad sleep, and it like throws you, for me, it will throw me for a loop, and it'll be like, oh,
yeah,
the sleep is what's keeping this all in check. So yes, I think that's such an important place to start. And it's so hard for people. Like, I watch my husband struggle with it. Like, so hard to put down the phone, to stop, to like help yourself. I think so much of this is like, help yourself. Just help yourself. Like, just,
I know, right? But it's one of those easier said than done things, right? Like,
yes.
I do a private podcast in my Jumpstart, and it's called Easier Said Than Done, right? Like, so many of these things, it's like, well, yeah, I just put my phone down or stop watching Netflix, but oh, it's so hard, especially after you've had a full day of maybe, responsibilities, doing adult things, work, all of this, and it feels like to a lot of people that's their only free space.
Yes,
right?
I know.
Which it relates to food too, right? Like, when you're not getting dopamine from a lot of different other things, and then food's kind of the easiest path, right?
Right.
To that hit. And it makes sense why, right? It's available everywhere and all these things. And it's the easiest way, fastest way to get a dopamine hit.
Well, and it's literally engineered. Some of the foods that people eat in those situations are literally engineered for that dopamine hit, like, which is so wild.
Yeah.
And a whole other story. But I think kind of what I was saying before is like, if you are serious about this stuff, it's so important to have a coach, to have a nutritionist, to have a partner in this journey, because like you said, you were just like so casually being like, oh, it's just 3 months and then we're on to this thing. Like, what you mentioned happens in 3 months. Like, to do on your own takes years, and like to not have an accountability buddy. And I think something that people, why people are drawn to this information on social media is like, they want to just hack and find the answer and like be able to do it themselves. But I think something that you preach a lot, and that I 100% agree with, is there are no shortcuts.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. I talk about that. Like, I'm like, pickleball, right? I'm like, okay, I want to learn pickleball, right? There's like levels of that. I can just read a book about pickleball, and that'll tell me a little bit about pickleball, right? I can go play with some friends, right? Dabble in a little bit of pickleball. I can take a group class of pickleball, or I can get a coach, right, to play pickleball. Which one's going to give me the fastest return, right? Yes. And the most improvement, right? It's having somebody one-on-one guiding you along the way. I mean, with anything, right? You can have improvement in lots of ways, but yes, having somebody there guiding you along, and also getting like, there's you can only get past a certain place by just getting tidbits online. And they're super helpful in a lot of ways. But I think what's also frustrating for a lot of my clients too is that all the information is conflicting. It's like, well, this will say one thing and this will say another, and like, which one is it? Yeah. So that's hard too.
And as you know very well, it's less about, it is about the doing, but it's also an emotional journey, and you need someone who can help you navigate that, reflect things back to you. Like, that's a lot to navigate on your own.
Yeah. And I'd say that's my favorite part, right? Like, it is the, like, understanding what gets in our way and right? Like, it takes, I mean, I know for me personally, like in the coaches I've had too, or the therapists I've had, or the healers I've had, right? Like, it is when you're taken down a path and you kind of see yourself in a different way, right? The mirror is shined on you, and you're like, oh, I see what I'm doing there. And knowing is half, right? The work, right? Knowing it and then working towards changing it. But it's illuminating in so many ways to start going internally with a lot of this stuff. And especially with food and health, right? We're looking externally for different answers. But a lot of it is internal.
Yeah. I hope for all of us very soon, like, the conversation can change from weight to more in the wellness direction. And I know that's what it all kind of leads to, right? But even the start of it, and because at this age, midlife, as people call it,
rebrand.
Yes, if anyone has any suggestions, we're looking for a word to rebrand. I don't feel like I'm at the middle of my life. I don't know. I don't feel like things are just getting started and just getting good. And I want that feeling for everyone at this age. But really we should be thinking about like more about longevity and vitality than we are weight loss. So I want to get into that conversation with you because I know you have a lot of great information on, longevity, whatever people are calling it these days, aging gracefully. I don't really love that either. Like, but like, let's make this time the best freaking time of our lives. Like I sometimes think like I look better than ever, like, and I look at my friends, a lot of my friends, and I'm like, you guys look amazing. You're hot. Like, look at J-Lo. She's like, what, 50, 55? She looks like she's 30. Like, I want the J-Lo like route,
Totally.
Put me on the J-Lo path, please.
I love that. And it's all like, I'm like all about like, I want to be strong, right? Energized, right?
Yes.
And, like that is kind of the longevity piece, right?
Yes.
There is so much about being strong that feels good on so many levels, which again goes back to this kind of old programming of like, well, if I lift heavy weights or I do this, I'm going to get bulky, right? Which is the whole marketing scam of like long and lean. Like that was just a way that they could, it's just a bunch of BS, right? Like we're wanting to be strong. Being strong makes you feel more empowered and, right, it makes you feel lighter, right? It's all the things that it's giving you. If we have more muscle mass, right, then our metabolism is better. Our bone density is better. Our strength is better. Our energy is better. Our heart, like all of those things that we want for long-term health. And not to mention that if we are thinking way in the future, I want to be able to get off the ground with my grandkids, right?
Yes.
Help getting up the stairs to go pick up toys with them or whatever it is. But now in this time, like you said, like it feels like prime time. That was kind of something somebody said, like, this is prime time. This is where we've really kind of evolved and come into our own and are really, like enjoying life in a different way. And it's super empowering. And I think the greater theme is like, how do we get strong? Right. In so many ways. And that's where I think the real like growth comes of, instead of being skinny, I want to be strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to be thin. We want to be powerful. Right?
Yeah.
And which we could even go deeper of that. It's like, I don't want to shrink anymore. Right. I don't want to be quiet and shrink and be right. I want to take up more space, which is hard for most of us. Women particularly, right? Yes. So we want to take up more space. We want to be strong. We want to take care of our bodies in a different way, and also eating more, which it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you want to eat more to eat less type of thing, right? Yeah. There is like eating more of the right things that are giving you fuel and energy, and what can give you power and all of these things is very different than what we've been told for so long. And it makes such a difference, right? I mean, that quickly within 2 weeks, I have clients being like, I can't believe I have so much more energy. Like a call with this, like take a nap in the afternoon. Like I'm exhausted, right? And then that's just totally flipped around.
Yeah. So let's reframe that. Like tell me what you feel like this age, this, what would you call it? Prime time? Like, I love that. What should prime time be all about, and what should we be focusing on? Because I want more, I'm having a kid later in life, might have another one. Like my husband and I have both been like, what we didn't know, like we're grateful to be older parents because we've learned so much, about ourselves and so many lessons and are evolved in so many ways, but we're freaking tired. Like we didn't think about that part of how much more tiring it is to have kids at, in your late 30s than in your late 20s. So I am very much on I want energy, I want vitality, I want vibrancy, I want to be a very different grandparent than my grandparents were as far as like mobility and like, yeah. So tell me, what should we be thinking about? What's most important here? Give me the inside scoop.
I feel like this is like almost kind of a question too of like, what could you tell your 25-year-old self, right? Like, what are you thinking about, going forward? And I mean, two things we've already talked about too, right? Like prioritizing your sleep when you can. Obviously, we don't have newborns and little kids and things like that, and then the strength training, not to be afraid of that, right? Just not, we focus so much again on this cardio. And again, growing up as an 80s, 90s kid, right? It was like cardio, right? And fat free. And cardio is great for your cardiovascular system. That's why it's called cardio, right? And it is, but it isn't what helps you even lose weight. I have people all the time, clients come to me and they're like, I'm doing Orange Theory, I'm doing Peloton, I'm doing all these things. And I'm like, great, I want you to stop. Yeah. Like, what? Right. And then the weight comes off because we shifted some other things, but sometimes that's super counterintuitive. So less cardio and more walking, right? And that's like a brisk walk with your friends, with your kid, whatever, getting out in nature the best you can, depending on where you are. Yes, there's weather things, but I had somebody the other day, like full, beanie bundled up on the East Coast. She's like, I'm going for my walk,
I love
I
that.
think we don't do enough like walking and moving around and
just moving.
Yeah. All that neat activity, right? That activity that's where you burn the most calories too, right? This kind of non-exercise piece where you're like gardening or unloading dishes or chasing your kid around or whatever. That's the part, like you said, mobility. You just want to be moving more as much as you can. And that's hard when most of us are tethered to a desk during the day, right? But like figure out ways, little like exercise snacks to get up, walk, do something, go up and down the stairs. It's just
exercise snacks. I assume that doesn't mean walking to get a snack.
Like a little bite-sized exercise, right? Yeah.
Love that.
I mean, like the cliche, like work farther away to go to Target. Yes. But there's like so many different things throughout your day that you can do, and more of that movement and lifting those heavy weights. Don't be afraid of that. You are not going to get bulky. It's such a kind of myth. I mean, muscles are the way they are, and like, sure, genetically there could be something, but 99% of women are going to lift weights in a way and they're not going to bulk up. That's not a thing. It's hard to bulk up. That's like a full-time job. You have to eat a very specific way. You have to lift weights in a very specific way and supplement and do so many things that you're not going to do by going to the gym or doing a home gym 2 to 3 days a week and lifting some heavy weights, right? But no more 2 to 3 pound like sculpting class. Stop it. Just stop it. Right? It's cool, but it's not doing anything.
I love a 3-pound weight. I do love a 3-pound weight. Like, look, Jenny, I do build muscle really quickly. My husband's always like so annoyed by me because he's like, you cannot touch a weight for years, and then 2 times at the gym, and I'm like, oh look, my arms are back. And
lucky. Yeah.
But I hear you. Because I've been hearing a lot of information lately about there is a lot of talk about women lifting weights for longevity, and tell me the things that it impacts, because I know it impacts bone density, right? And that's super important. But what else should we know about lifting weights? I feel like there's been a lot of information going around.
Yeah. I feel like one of the big pieces, for midlife, like you're saying, yes, bone density, it makes a huge difference. But as we're getting older, our muscle mass decreases. That starts at about 30. Happens, I don't remember the percentage per decade or whatever, but after 30, it really starts to kind of backslide, and our muscle mass really decreases. And why it's important in the like health space too of, yes, muscle mass, but it changes your BMR, right? This rate at which you're burning your fuel, your calories, the more muscle you have. So what's actually happening, because a lot of people are like, what, I'm kind of gaining weight. I have this thickness through the middle, all that, right? It's increasing this visceral fat, which is the fat that we don't want. This is the fat that increases your risk for diabetes and heart disease and cancer and all of these things that increases as we get older, right? We are technically getting fatter, right? Because the muscle mass is decreasing and the fat is increasing, but partially because, right, yeah, right, like it, or people will be like, I feel like items have shifted in flight. Like they're like, I feel like I weigh the same, but like,
yes,
in
yeah,
different places. I didn't know like what's happening. And when you can improve that BMR, right, then like we're saying, you're more energized, you have more energy, your metabolism is working for you when you're sitting on Netflix and getting off, right? Like we talked about, like it's burning more. When you have more fat, it's kind of sitting back and chilling. And but you have more, I call it feeling like lighter in your body. And that's because that's what I hear from clients. Once you start building that muscle mass, then all of a sudden, like everything's easier. You think of just like simple things of like you said, picking up something for your kid or getting in and out of your car. Like everything just feels lifted and light and easier. I watched some NFL thing the other day, like a guy, you know, practicing for a game. And I was like, oh my God, he is so strong. And he just like was bouncing around the field.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's one of the, you know, like best, fastest running backs or, you know, whatever. I have no idea. But he just like stood there and did a backflip, right? Like his body was so strong. Could just flip, right? Like you're dragging, everything is dragging. You just have, your body composition is off and you have too much fat mass and not enough muscle mass. It's great for your brain. It's great for your hormones, all of those things.
I mean, the language you just used, if going from dragging to a lift is not motivation enough, I don't know what is, you know, at this age. What? So how do you, like, I know obviously you can go to a gym. I don't have a gym membership. Is there like a home workout that is your go-to that you recommend? Or because I'm very motivated to start lifting weights. I have been feeling the call recently anyway, but like now you've convinced me. But like I don't see myself buying a gym membership. I'm going to be completely honest.
I have a gym membership. And again, it kind of goes back to barriers. You have to know your personality, right? You have to go internally. Like you said, like I don't see myself getting a membership. That's not to say that maybe, you know, in a different season of life you do and you like look forward to that. But in this season, right, of where you're at, in the season where I'm at, I don't want to go to the gym, right? That's another barrier. I've got to drive. I've got to park in LA. It's like I got to get a parking like ticket, then I got to validate it. Like there's a lot of
I hate that. Oh,
I want no part of that. But I like home gym. You can do a lot. You can go on Amazon and, you know, buy like there's like different sets of, you know, weights that you can get a starter set or whatever. And I just follow different videos on YouTube. I do kind of like workouts sometimes in my membership and have like workout class. I'm a personal trainer too.
Oh yeah.
It's not like a full focus of what I do, but it is part of my membership to have some of the workouts in there. But
cool.
I go to YouTube if I'm not going to follow something like that I've done or a workout that I have printed out or something. I just follow a YouTube channel. I like Mad Fit. She's great. And
cool.
I'm kind of particular about those things too. Like I don't want somebody that has a lot of chatter. I don't want you talking. Like I remember old school, like Billy Blank's Tybo.
Oh my God. Yes.
I could like say the whole thing back to you. You know what I mean? Where he's like, come on, push it. Anyways, and I don't want that. Like I just want you to like, just tell me what exercise we're doing, show me what exercise we're doing, and then let's do it and count it down. Like that's it.
Yeah.
You know?
Great. I'm down with that. Yeah. Okay. Great. I like that. So
I would also say that don't let the barrier be like that I have to do 60 minutes or even 30 minutes. There's tons of science around 20 minutes, even 2 times a week makes a huge difference in your body. So sometimes even to get myself there, because I don't want to go to my garage to go lift weights or whatever, I'm like, I can do all the exercises laying down, right? You can do a lot of exercises laying down. I just lay on the mat and they can do chest, right? Like I'm like, Jenny, you can go for 10 minutes and just lay on the fucking mat and do some exercises. And you can. I can lift some very heavy weights laying on my back, right? Or on my stomach and, you know, doing rows and stuff. So anyways, like just get yourself to the mat. That's the hardest part, is getting yourself there. I even did something with a client once where she would put the weights by her back door, right? So she would have to get them and see them.
She'd have to lift them up. Yeah.
Is another little hack too. Like I have my shoes by my front door to for walking, right? But they don't have shoelaces and I don't have to wear socks, right? Because again, they sound like a non-thing, but it is. It's like if I gotta go upstairs and get socks and then put it on and then go out to walk, I'm not doing it. But if I'm just like, go.
This is why I love you, actually. And I think why it is so like, you make things so approachable, and it is very authentic to you, because it sounds like these are things that you've kind of made these shortcuts or use this language in your own life to convince yourself to do things. But everything you do is, and I think you use the word lazy in a lot of things, like the lazy path or the easy path. And to me, it's just more of like the realistic path. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. And like, the goal is to show up and just like show up however you can. But I really love that about your approach. Like, will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, like I call it like lazy healthy, right? Yes. Yeah. Like I know, and somebody on the internet was like, I think it's just efficient, and I was like, yeah, it's efficient, right? What can I do to really simplify this recipe?
Yeah.
I can cook it like Ina, which maybe I can do that on a Saturday night, but I'm not going to do that on Wednesday night after we've got basketball practice and guitar and, I've worked all day. Like, that's the easiest, way to get some food on the table that isn't takeout, right? And I guess like a lot of this stems from, I was not a healthy person. I grew up in Texas, and I joke that like my diet was like casseroles and caffeine. And that's what it was. And the irony of that is I moved out here, I was 21 maybe. And I worked for Shape Magazine for some time. And I was like, so not into anything that they were talking about.
Amazing.
And the girls would be like, let's go to the Whole Foods bar. And I was always so depressed when they wouldn't go to the Whole Foods bar. And I was like, why does nobody want to go to Quiznos? Like, I want a toasty, crunchy sandwich. Why are we going to the Whole Foods sandwich bar? None of this. But kind of when I changed my diet life, maybe like 15 plus years ago, and in that way, like I was like, there's so much information, right? Like, how am I going to really manage making some of these changes for myself? And how am I going to do this in a way that I'm actually going to be able to do it sustainably and do that, right?
Yeah.
And it evolves over time, right? You just start with little shifts, little baby steps, and then those grow, kind of like we talked about seasons earlier. Like each time you evolve, you're going to add more to that, right? You're going to keep, then all of a sudden you are somebody who, strength trains, right? Where you weren't somebody who did that before. And maybe you just worked at your home gym and did those things for some time. And then you're like, oh, now I found this gym that I really like, or this trainer that I really like, right? Like you got to get started with something. And I'm always like, what's the easiest, least resistance way to get something going? Because that's the hardest part. Step one is the hardest, right? It's kind of like with kids, like 0 to 1 is a thing, right? 1 to 2 is less hard.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for people to understand. It's like, you just like kind of step through the door and then you're doing it. And when you start doing these things, even on a small scale level, like you start to feel the impacts so quickly. Yeah. And that is the motivator to then take you to the next step, have you keep adding on, like have you keep showing up. It's just about, stepping into just showing up.
And oftentimes too, like once you start feeling that, then that becomes your internal, like we said, your internal motivator. Intrinsic motivation is the best way to do something, right?
Yeah.
You feel like someone's telling you to do something or whatever, you don't have any autonomy, right? It's not part of it. It's really hard to keep doing something, right? Feeling your own intrinsic motivation, your own autonomy of making your choices gives you sustainability. And so once you start seeing the positive impact of, something simple of not staying up, right? Late, multiple nights in a row. And then that opportunity presents itself, right? It's like, oh, is it really worth that? I know what's coming on the other side if I don't do that, right? Like I know what feels better about that, right? Like it takes a lot for me to like go to a concert. It's got to count. It's got to really matter. Because I know how it's going to affect the next day, right? I won't fire as quickly, even like if I've got clients the next day or something. You start making choices because you want to feel your best most of the time. And that's why I guess I do feel like this is like prime time because you're we're now wise enough to have less FOMO about certain things. And it is now like, what do I want? What do I like? What feels good to me? And I'm clearer with setting my boundaries on what that is. Whereas before it felt it still can be scary and isolating for sure, but not as much as it did when you were younger, right? That like, I want to be part of whatever, don't want to miss out on that party or that trip or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't work for me, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel my best. And that's how I prefer to feel.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's like, my husband, I stopped drinking alcohol 2 years ago. I've recently stopped drinking caffeine, which I think I told you about. As a fellow matcha lover, you know how hard that is.
Yes.
But having conversations with my husband about he's considering stopping drinking also, not because either of us ever had anything close to a problem. And that's almost the harder part, like being a casual drinker, right? Where you're like, well, I only do it once in a while, but he just went to a wedding and came home hungover and a wasted next day. You know what I mean? And it's like, we're at this, I'm just having that conversation with him. I'm like, at this stage in life, like, we don't have time to waste. Like, there's no time to have a down day feeling crappy. And really, alcohol takes a few days to come out, at least I've found, to come out of your system, and it messes with your sleep. And like, it's like, we don't have days to recover from drinking alcohol. We just don't do that anymore, because just what you said, you want to feel, especially having a 3-year-old run around who they feel their best all the frickin' time.
Like up and running around with them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And at this stage in life, it's just like, what's the priority? And feeling your best. And so we've talked about sleep, we've talked about strength training. Tell me about food, because there is so much language out there about like how we should be eating, what we should be doing. Like, what are the top few things that you would tell someone to pay attention to when it comes to food?
I would say a kind of two main pieces. One is that we hear often, obviously, about protein, because it is in alignment with what we talked about before. Like with our muscle mass, we've got to build that up. And we tend to be light on protein because carbs are fun and easier to eat.
True.
I often say, like, I am not in the full, yes, we need to be eating more. And yes, there's like certain minimums that I'm like, I would love my clients to be at least, 100 grams per day and things like that. But what it really would focus on is you just want to be leaning towards more, right? It's like a baby step in that way. Just lean a little more, right? Start eating your plate with your protein first. Don't go straight for the rice or the potato, right? Like, just focus on that so you can try to tick up that protein. It does so many things for you and has so many benefits. But that's kind of like all over everything right now, social. I would say as big of a piece is plant foods, fiber. I call it a power plate, right? So I talk about plants and protein, right? It's like, how are you going to build your plate and get as many plants as you can get, right? As many colors, as much fiber.
Yeah.
It's just like protein, we're super low. I don't remember exactly the number of what an average American is, but women, especially 35 plus, we need like 30 grams of fiber per day. And no doubt we're not getting it. Like, it's not happening. And you have to be a little bit more, like with everything, a little bit more mindful, a little bit more thoughtful of like, how can I add something else here to bulk this fiber? Even if you're something simple with breakfast, if you're like, I'm going to have some eggs or whatever, like throw on some raspberries. They're super high in fiber. Avocados are super high in fiber, obviously healthy fats too, but like knowing those things, I've kind of cheated for that, but like knowing a few of your go-to quick high fiber foods, just like go-to quick high protein foods. And those high protein foods, can be chicken and tuna and those kind of things, but also tempeh, tofu, those things too, right? Like knowing your easy go-to things, make it easier. It simplifies things, just knowing those go-tos and kind of eating things on repeat. Simplify your life. Really.
I'm such a eat on repeat, for better or worse, more of just like, again, the chapter that we're in. Yeah. And it's like, hey, if it's working, it's working. We probably have 10 meals that I rotate, for dinner. It's like this is our schedule this week and this is our schedule next week. But it's like, simplifying. If you find something that works, like just keep doing that until you're sick of it.
I love that you said that too, like on repeat. I say people do that all the time. Pick 10 recipes you know how to cook without much thought, and then just alternate it like you're a school cafeteria. Like this week is this week, this week is this week. Forget about it. You've got basic 5 nights, and then you've got a night for takeout and a night for dining out or leftovers or whatever, right? But
and
simplify.
Something I love doing too, and I'm sure you preach about this. I love to like have it mapped out ahead of time. So like obviously when I'm doing my grocery shopping, that's when I plan out what my meals are. And then even then I take it and I put it on a little calendar I have on my refrigerator so that even the day I write down like if there's any prep I need to do, what's going to go in it. And so that even takes out the steps of thinking like the what's for dinner, like that question, just like I loathe that question, like because I'm the one who has to answer it usually. But I think like just thinking about like what works for you in your world and doing that, taking out the day-to-day decisions that have to be made and, just making it really obvious and easy has certainly helped me.
Yeah. And I like what you said there too. And it's true. Like we already have so much mental load. There's already so much that we're doing and juggling as most of us females, I'm guessing, listeners, right? That you're trying to juggle and spin a lot of plates, and anything you can do to, I'm like, outsource, right? And, or like fear of that. If you're looping all the time, it takes so much mental space. If 6 times, 20 times a day, you're thinking about what's for dinner. But if you already knew that and you knew that 2 days ago, it clears up the space. You can be more creative. You can manifest more. You can, right? You can make better choices. Like it opens up so much mind space if you just take that task off the list. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like it's not like you have to sit down and look through recipe books and whatever and think about what am I going to, recipes or do this week.
Right.
Just know kind of your day-to-day routine. What nights do we have stuff? Do I have meetings? Do we have sports? Do we whatever? And what are those 10 basic meals that I know how to cook, and where do they fit in this puzzle? It can take 2 minutes, and it gives you so much on the back end, but it is one of those habits that none of us like to do because it feels like it's going to be this ultimate huge task. And it gives you so much in return if you just do something simple. One of the reasons I like theme nights too, because I don't have to then like go through this whole process, right? Like everybody can use Taco Tuesday night, right? We know we're going to have some taco-esque thing on Tuesday, right? Something in that vein.
Yes.
So I don't have to think of 65 different things. It's just like, am I making chicken tacos? Am I making fish tacos? Am I making, right? Like, what is it?
So good.
Oversimplified.
I like that. And I like what you were saying about like, about the mental space. And obviously we're talking about it on a very small scale, but like everyone listening and your clients, like just think about the mental space that you're using on all of this, worrying about your weight, worrying about being strong, like that enough should be a motivator to like, let's just clear this out of our head. Let's just do the habits, get the things, like get this all being a part of our daily life and routine. So I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And I can just move on to the next thing,
because that is like, it feels like oppressive. Like there's so much of that of like, I just want to get to a place where I don't have to think about what to eat anymore. And it's like, that comes from planning.
Yes.
Unfortunately, right? Like you don't have to think about it anymore if you take care of it quickly and do things on repeat and find little tools and hacks that help yourself. You don't always have to be thinking about that and not getting confused about kind of this excess noise of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We all know we need to be eating vegetables, right? And fruits and right. Like these are just basic things that we can kind of get twisted in a lot of ways.
Okay, so let's pretend people get the basics, they get the foundation. I want to do kind of a rapid fire with you, and it doesn't have to be fully rapid fire because I think some of these topics are interesting, but it's kind of some of the information floating around the internet, and I'm going to say the word or the subject, and you just share whatever comes out, your feelings on it, your thoughts, like anything we can have as long as a conversation as you want. But like, there's a few of them I want to make sure that we get to
I love it.
For the people.
Love it. This is good.
Okay. Let's start on one that I already know that you have strong opinions on Ozempic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, rapid fire with that. Okay. This, Ozempic has its place, and it's amazing medicine that is helping people who need that. I am all for that. I know it's also helping, right, in a lot of other areas. They're seeing new science with cardiovascular and stuff like that. We don't know all the full science, right? It is being used now, right? What a lot of women are now calling microdosing it.
Interesting.
Right? Yes, they're microdosing it, which can see a lot of benefits. There's some they're saying there's cognitive benefits, in addition to, right, this weight loss piece, because GLP-1, it suppresses your hunger, right? It does a lot of different things, but let's just, to keep it simple, it does that. And in a big picture, what I don't like about this is I am trying to get more women connected to their hunger.
Yes.
Not disconnected to their hunger. And from my work and my experience, there is a lot of guilt and shame around this feeling of hunger, which shouldn't feel bad. It should feel great. That is a important piece of our body and soul, to be hungry and to fuel yourself. That's how you get fueled properly. And when you're taking something that suppresses your appetite, I mean, it's already hard enough, like we just talked about, to get enough protein and fiber, and now you don't want to eat. It's fucking impossible to get the things that now we need, the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need, that can then decrease your muscle mass and all of these things. It makes it harder. And it doesn't change the things that you crave. It's not like you go on Ozempic and you're like, I can't wait to go eat spinach now. You still just want to eat bread, right? Like, that's right. Go away. It's just now you're not hungry and don't have as much of an appetite and you can't eat as much. So it doesn't change your health. My even primary care doctor said that they're changing some of the things, that if you're going on Ozempic, that you are required to work with a dietitian or a nutritionist in some way, because you do have to learn. It can't be separate. You have to learn the lifestyle if you're going to use that. So I have clients who have used it or are using it, and there are ways to do it in a good way, but there's pieces of it that I don't love, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. I think goes back to something that we've said a few times in this episode, is like, there are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
Like, this feels very much like a shortcut, and it really feels very disempowering to me, not being the expert in this conversation, not knowing a ton about it. It is literally taking the power away from you to decide and understand your own body. And as someone who, comes at things from a spiritual perspective and really wants to empower people spiritually, like, we don't need to disconnect from our body more. We need to connect to, like, how can you, like, the very basic of intuition is like being able to feel into your gut, right? For a lot of us. And like, if you don't have that relationship, how can you have a relationship with your So yeah, Ozempic is a big no for
me. I love that you
yeah,
like, it is. Yeah, I love that you said that, because it is the opposite, right? It's of empowering. It is disempowering, and it's like a social construct of this, like, not like, just, if I'm not hungry, then I don't eat, and then and everything's okay. It's like, that's the opposite of what we're working for, right?
Energetically, it feels just it feels very bad. Yeah.
I see that.
No, and I know the language we all, in all these topics, like, we kind of navigate around, because you don't want anyone to feel bad. People need to do what they need to do, but like, can we just get to the root of things? And like, I think a lot of these things, like, can we get to a place where we love ourselves and know ourselves? And then that's like kind of the solution. And other than that, it's like a lot of just bypassing that direct path.
It feels like a bypass of, yes, you're bypassing doing the harder work, which again takes a long time and is hard. But if there's emotional eating stuff happening, you're bypassing it by giving yourself something that just erases that.
Yeah, it's
you're
wild.
Not doing any of the hard work. Yeah.
Okay. Next one, biohacking. What are, like, tell me about how that one hits for you.
I mean, all I see is Dave. Dave in orange glasses, you know, and like, I mean, I love me some Dave just because I love he's who he is, and there's like no whatever, but like I am not into it. I am not into extremes. Let's just say that. I don't like extremes in any way. I am more in the camp of how do we do less and how do we slow down? That would be my ultimate biohack. If we could all slow down everything, and this is kind of goes into like deeper spiritual conversations that you and I have had, that like, yeah, we got to slow down everything. Slow down, be present, put our feet on the ground, make a meal, slowly eat and, you know, savor and enjoy this meal, get good sleep, walk outside, right? These are kind of basic things, almost like the blue zone type of things. Do I need to go to a hyper oxygen, right, baric chamber? Okay, right?
Right.
You know, but I often say walk before you run, right? If you're doing all of the basic pillars that we're talking about, you're moving your body, you're, you know, those things I just said, and you're doing all those and checking those off, and you've been doing that for years, then add these extra things. But at no point do I think you need to now just like throw in colostrum if you're not doing anything else. Like,
right.
Why?
Yeah, like don't buy a cold plunge before you buy the weights. You know, like go buy the weights, do the workout, then get your cold plunge. Like
if you're getting less than 5,000 steps a day, like what are we talking about? Yeah. Like you have to move.
Yes. It's almost like the opposite extreme of Ozempic, right?
Yes.
Like
yeah. So yeah, like walk before you run, do all these basics. And then once you're there and you're like, I'm ready to up level, right? Then do that. But at no point do you need to be doing all these extra things, you know, before you're walking. So
yeah. Perfect. Love that. Okay. Botox.
Ooh. Okay. I think we don't know everything about it yet. It's still so new and there's still so many things. And I think there's also an element of, if it has benefits, sure, like maybe it's helping in some way, but let your face do what your face does.
Yeah, I probably should have told you. This is a safe place.
Yeah.
By the way, I know I'm throwing some hard ones at you, and I guess Botox and fillers we can kind of loop under the same one. It's not under the same thing. Botox is literally a toxin,
right?
Like the letters tox is in the name, and I don't even know the full details. Like there's some stuff going around now. There is some like counter Botox language starting to happen very slowly and quietly, because it's also been positioned in some ways as like this empowering thing for women to get Botox, get fillers, like anti-aging, feel good about yourself. Like, you know, this is how I feel my best. And like, okay, but let's just like break that down to the most simple level.
Yeah.
How you feel your best is by injecting toxins into your face to look different than you really do. Really probably to show up for other women and on Instagram looking that way. You know, like our husbands don't give a shit about this stuff.
Oh my God, Andrew would kill me if, you know, like he's like, oh my God, please no. But it's similar to the filter conversation before. And like I was saying, like I know there's like some benefits of like you can do Botox in your jaw and it's supposed to help or something. Like there's some sort of something benefit with it, but for an aesthetic thing, I feel like we don't know as much as it's going to come out later. But like you said, there's bits and pieces that I feel like it's really not great. It's not good for what's happening. Like it's not good for your face and your body and
the lymphatic system.
Yes. Like it's clogging, it's freezing. And again, on kind of like, it's kind of where I was thinking, like it goes in like a bigger picture place of like, why are you trying to disconnect?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I laugh and I make these faces and that creates these lines and these wrinkles.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's what that is. And I fully intend to keep laughing and making those faces. And it's prime time, right? Prime time I am excited because aging is a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's a benefit, and that's how I see it. And if somebody hasn't seen me in 10 years and then they see me and they're like, oh my gosh, Jenny looks old, right? I think that would be like the fear of women. Like, oh my gosh, she's going to say I look old. I'm like, thank fucking God.
Right.
Thank God that I look old, because that means I'm aging.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I get to age. I am soon to be 45. My dad died at 54. And I think about that often. Like, if that's all, like,
yeah.
I want to age.
I've considered like just saying that I'm older than I am so that people are like, oh, you look really good. You know, like I think that's the way we need to go. Be like, oh, you know, add 10 years on, and then people will be like, oh, well, you look amazing.
Right. 65. Yeah. Like, holy shit. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I know. And it's hard. I mean, even going through that personally with coloring my hair, I have tried it a few times, and each time I don't like it. It feels like it looks like a wig. It looks weird to me. I actually have an appointment Wednesday, and I'm debating, am I going to get it or am I not? Am I going to let this just kind of be? I know that if my hair is a warmer tone, like I've done my colors, I know if it's a warmer tone, I look better, right?
Yeah.
I look better. So maybe do I want to do that and go like a low tox dye?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this, my hair is darkening and there's more grays coming in, and that is what it is. You know, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I know for my, right. Like I don't have an answer for myself. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I know that I feel like the Botox stuff, we're going to learn more. And I don't think it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I agree with that. And I had that conversation with my mom recently, and I was like, Mom, who knows what people's faces are going to look like in 30 years? And she was like, I'm 60. I don't care what my face is going to look like in 30 years. I was like, okay, fair. Like, do you know, her boyfriend's 9 years younger than her. She's trying to look young, and also I'm not changing her mind anytime soon. But I also, going back to what we talked about, having a daughter, I like would be heartbroken if my daughter wanted to change anything about the way she looked, you know? And like, so that's an additional motivator for me, is like when I'm being self-critical of my face or my crow's feet or anything, it's like, I would never want my daughter to hear me speaking like this, and I would never want her to feel these things about herself. So like, I need to show up feeling good about myself as I am, and like, you know, be the example for her.
Yeah. It's like we talked about at the beginning, right? Like my daughter is now she's getting teased about certain things and whatever, right? And it's important for me to say, like, I love these things about me, you know? Like
and I will murder anyone who picks on you.
Right. And what's their name? Right? But right? Like this is, you know, and beauty stuff changes all the time too, right? Like I see people, like I used to hate freckles when I was a kid. Oh my God, I don't want freckles. I don't want freckles. Now people are getting them tattooed.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. And there's nothing more like beautiful than someone who is empowered and through, you know, feeling good and feeling good about themselves and just owning exactly who they are. Like there's nothing that like turns people's heads in a room more than that, you know? And I think, again, it all kind of comes down to like, can we love ourselves? And then these conversations become very different inside our own heads.
Yeah. And I like people to look different.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's this kind of lean towards it looking at this certain way, this certain filter, this certain, you know, big lips type, whatever. And I like when I see someone's face and seeing what's different about them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. From a spiritual perspective too, like it changed, like if everything's energy, imagine how much having this fake material in your skin and your body, and one of the things that you're presenting you know, that is how people read your energy. Like, imagine what that does to your energy. It's
interesting. Yeah, no, that's true. It's like I mean, I would feel like it would be blocked. It would be, I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, last one.
Yeah.
And it's a spicy one. Love
it.
Let's talk about the big buzz happening, certainly in both our feeds right now, the war on Kellogg's.
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, talk about hot topic, right? Okay. You said it the other day and it was like perfect. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to steal this. But like, the world is literally like burning down. And we're like, well, thank God there's no more red dye in our fucking Fruit Loops. Right? Like, what are we talking about?
Yes.
What? This is, and this comes from, and again, listeners don't know kind of my history, but like, and you and I have known each other almost maybe 15 years, but like, I started this working for the Jamie Oliver Foundation, teaching in schools, volunteering, helping try to change our food system, make steps, educate kids on how to eat more foods, real foods, showing them what spinach was, right? Like, doing all of this work is foundationally where I started. And so this stuff is important to me. I want, subsidies going to the right kind of farming, and like, yes, those things need to change, and those things are important to me, important to you, but it is fully skewed to some weird part of the spectrum, and it's wild. And I don't understand. I mean, I do understand how it got tethered now and it's moved over to the Republican Party, which, if your Republican Party is notoriously has not been for any of these things.
Right.
And somebody who grew up Republican in Texas and all this, the Democratic Party is where we need to lean if we're going to make some strides in some of these directions. It just feels like a fucking mess.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch the cycle from a distance, right? Like, yes, I think the government needs to put better things in place. Like, there are foods that are allowed in the US that aren't allowed anywhere else. And like, yes, that needs to happen. But you see the wellness influencers kind of clinging to this Kellogg's conversation, and you can see how popular it gets. It's getting followers. It is clickbait. It is like easy language. It is getting them on news shows and podcasts. And it's like, has anyone stopped to think all the energy and effort and time going into that? Like, what is the actual impact that's going to have, versus if you could use that energy, time going into something that really is foundational in the food system, that really does bring food equality to people who need it, that really does educate people. You're talking about removing food coloring from cereal, and of course other ingredients, but cereal shouldn't be eaten anyway.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, why are we trying to fix a food that we shouldn't have anyway? Like, this is a treat if you're going to have Fruit Loop. Like, and that's a whole other, food equality piece, because I know there's access and there's, right, but like, that's where the subsidies come in, and like, it's such a layered thing. But why are we trying to change a food that we're not wanting to eat anyways? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. It's pulling energy into an area that, it's a waste of time. And I understand that it feels like it is the piece, like it's maybe a Jenga piece. Then now we can see things crumble and start to rebuild. But there are other, it feels like a waste of resources and energy. And it feels like it just got spun around into some dangerous hands.
Yes. Yeah. It feels like it was an easy platform to stand on. It got enough attention that then it started just like feeding into itself and getting more attention. And it feels like another thing. Like, it's just like a representation of what it's trying to knock down, right? Like egos getting in the way of actual change.
Mm-hmm.
But hey,
yeah,
that's where we're at. That is the time we are living in.
We'll
right
see what kind of a mess will happen. We'll
see. There's no other way but to see.
Right. I mean, we're just gonna sit back and see what happens, and we'll have no red dye on our Fruit Loops. Yay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the ban Kellogg's thing. I was like, wait, but like the people who are fighting for this they're already not buying Kellogg's stuff.
Right.
Like
totally.
Like, it's interesting, the world, and it's just, I think back to a lot of what you're trying to do, which is empower people to get in tune with their own inner compass, think for themselves, feel strong, feel empowered, like get some language I've been using a lot lately, and I've been talking about it a little bit more from a spiritual perspective, but as we said, like you have to start with this foundation of like taking care of yourself, is like get right with yourself. Get right with yourself in all the ways. Like, let me tell you, now is the time, and like the clock's ticking. Like literally, like if there was ever a time to get right with yourself, people, read into this what you want. It is now.
Yes. And like you said, that maybe that seems really daunting, like to get right with yourself, but then everything else gets easier.
Yes.
And like we talked earlier, it's like when you are living for yourself, right? In that way, then choices become easier. They become so much. And I think that is why midlife, right, is prime time, because you really stop living for other people or other things, right?
Yeah. So, I love that. And it is a call to do that. Like, and what you said earlier, that there's astrologically, that is exactly the call. Mid to late 30s and to mid 40s, it's like astrologically people do start to feel the shift of like, wait a minute, what's important to me? How do I actually feel? What do I actually want? I think it used to be called the midlife crisis. We're
crisis or something.
I mean, it needs a rebrand. It is an awakening, a rebirth, a renaissance, like whatever. It is a good thing. And if you are finding yourself asking or thinking those things, like, good for you. That is a good sign. And there is help out there for you. And if you need help in the health and wellness longevity space, Jenny is an incredible resource. Jenny, can you first, I have one last question, and then I want to hear, what you have going on and how people can work with you or get in touch with you.
Yeah.
But this is a question I like to ask at the end of every episode. You have 10 seconds with someone to make an impact, to say something that's going to make an impact on their life. What's the one thing you say?
I have 10 seconds to make an impact.
Yes.
Yep. You can change your mind. You can change, and you can change your mind. There is a lot of belief. I see this in myself, and I see this with other women and clients, that change feels really scary. Right? And it can feel, because sometimes that change can isolate you or put you in a different direction. And that means you're shedding some things and shedding some people and shedding, right? Like if you're not drinking anymore with the crew that you used to drink with, it's scary, right?
Yeah.
To change and evolve out of that. But I wish somebody younger had said, you can change and you can change your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Permission to change your mind is, yeah. And this, like, I also want to tell people, like, the journey of improving your health, wellness, longevity is very much a spiritual journey too. It's like kind of like all in one. So it is, it's not only, look, we're here in these physical bodies for a reason, and it's not to trash them, right? They have a purpose. It's to take care of them. Like, let's take care of them and like maximize this opportunity. But I think in a really beautiful and hopefully exciting way, people will be really shocked and happy and excited about the full evolution and full journey that they're going on when they decide to go on their health and wellness journey.
No, I mean, it's true. I appreciate that because it's a spiritual process. I often tell people that we're also getting into an intimate relationship, right? If we work one-on-one or in even my group settings, right? Like we're getting to some nitty gritty stuff. We're not just making meal plans, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that here. Sorry.
The meal plans almost don't even matter.
Right, like, you're welcome to find that online, but I don't do that. So
love that. Love that. So, what do you do with clients and how can people work with you?
I work one-on-one with clients. And like we talked about kind of through the episode, like it is an ongoing process over several months. I also have, a membership program, which is it's like a community. We're all kind of in there together. I do weekly like audio podcast type things. I'm there to answer questions, guide you. It has kind of like my blueprint pillars and guidance in that way. And then what I'm really excited about, I just finished a group in October and I've got a new Jumpstart group starting in January. And it is actually, I'm doing like a Black Friday launch for it. So
okay.
Now I've got like limited spots for that, but you join now and then we kind of jumpstart together. Like I said, it's a group coaching program. And we kind of start trying to baby step these habits that we've been talking about. So you can get started, feel good in the new year.
I love that. And I love a group program because I think that there's so much, obviously, that I think this and the language that I use in the podcast, but I think there's so much expansion that happens in those interactions with other people and witnessing each other's journey and being a support and sharing things. Like I can imagine that it's just, in those group, the group sessions, it's not just like you as the resource, but like the resource is being a part of a community and group.
Yeah. And I mean, people get to hear from each other, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's days when you're up and you can help someone else. And there's days when you're down and you need to look at somebody else. Like it's really, right, works with the like yin and the yang of us supporting each other. And yeah, that I'm not the only resource that people are learning along the way. And I mean, I really love it. It's been really great.
Yeah. That's awesome. And where can people find you? Because they need to dive into your content.
So the easiest way to put it, Instagram. So Instagram is Jenny Jiles. That's 2 J's, JENNY JILES. And then that's my website too. So you can go check out all that stuff. But yeah, I'd love to have you.
Yeah. Awesome. Jenny, you are the best. And we covered a lot of things and a lot of great information. Anyone listening, I think no matter what part of your journey you're on, whether it is like the jumpstart that makes sense to you and you are kind of early days of figuring out the health and wellness, or you're in that stage of like, hey, I'm ready for vibrancy, I'm ready for vitality, I'm ready for more energy, Jenny is your girl. Like it sounds like there's a wide range of things that you are really an expert in and can support. So start following her on Instagram, hit her up in her DMs, check out her programs, and certainly anyone in your life who, could use this information. Like I said, we covered a lot of topics. Anyone in your life who could use this information, especially now is a good time. Maybe prep people for the holiday conversations you want to have by sharing this episode. You will either be the favorite or the least favorite person at the holiday dinner table. So, all right. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Love you. Thank you.